Welcome to the Rock's Back Pages podcast. I'm Barney Hoskins, and I'm in West London with my colleagues Mark Pringle.
Hi, Barney.
And Jasper Murison-Bowie.
Hello, Barney.
And joining us all the way from Laurel Canyon is the legendary Penelope Spheeris. Hello, Penelope. Hello, Penelope.
Hello, Barney. What's up?
Oh, we're going to talk in this episode about our guest's stellar career as a filmmaker, and specifically about her first two Decline of Western Civilization documentaries, as well as the hugely successful Wayne's World and plenty more besides. Penelope, by any measure, you have had an extraordinary and very traumatic life, ruthless at best, shockingly violent at worst in terms of your childhood and adolescence. Your father was murdered in Alabama. Your brother was killed in a car crash. And your daughter's father died of an overdose. How does one carry such a heavy load?
Well, gosh, why don't you just start with the tough stuff first, Barney? Okay. I think I know it was very difficult dealing with such loss. I'm not an especially religious person, but somebody said once that God never gives you anything you can't handle. I've handled it. I do think I suffer from PTSD from it, especially from the younger ones. You know, when you have such trauma at age 7 and your father is murdered, it sticks with you all your life, you know. So, yeah, I live every day of my life in fear that something terrible is going to happen. So that's how I handled it.
Yeah. And a lot of your childhood was spent in the South. I remember when I interviewed you in the 90s, you were just finishing the Beverly Hillbillies. So there was obviously a lot of kind of Southern stuff there in terms of like Southern people coming to Los Angeles. I remember we talked about that. Tell us about your memories of moving to Southern California as a kid.
Well, it was sort of like escaping from jail. You know, I was living in Arkansas, Hot Springs, Arkansas, after my father died. And my mom decided, my mom was told, in all, my mother was married 9 times. Okay. So I had 7 stepfathers. The first one being an army dude that was getting restationed to Southern California. So that's why we moved out here. You know, and that was probably when I was around, I don't know, 9, 10 years old, something like that. Yeah.
And your brother, I mean, it's always interesting to me, given, you know, your incredible punk rock film, that your brother was, in a sense, part of the whole kind of mellow singer-songwriter thing, wasn't he, in Southern California? He was an artist on Columbia Records. His first album came out in 1972. And I know he was like pals with Jackson Browne. Do you have memories of that? And did you meet the kind of people that Jimmy was making records with?
Oh, yeah. He was good friends with Joni Mitchell, too, here in Laurel Canyon. And Jackson, we lived in this really tiny, like 800 square foot tract home in Westminster, and Jackson Browne lived out in that area as well. And Jackson would just like walk in the bedroom one day and they would sit there and strum acoustic together, you know? So yeah, I mean, I knew his friends. He was actually the way my brother got his first guitar was that I went to Tijuana with my friend Linda Wickhart from high school, and we bought a guitar off a street vendor, and I brought it home and I couldn't play it. And Jimmy picked it up and it was like a miracle from God. It's like, what the hell, this guy he could play any instrument without even having a lesson. It was really pretty amazing. Yeah.
Obviously, he made a number of albums and then very tragically was killed in a car crash in 1984, I think it was. I mean, by that time, you were already making films. You had started making. What was the kind of inception of that? When did you know that you might be interested in being in the film business in some capacity or other?
Well, that's a complicated question because, back in those days, women never dared say they wanted to be a director. And it kind of even didn't occur to me until I got out of film school at UCLA. Women in film back then, especially, here in the United States, a little bit different in Europe, but we were either going to be script supervisors or assistant editors, not first editors, assistant editors, and, have those kind of jobs on movie sets. So I stayed in school way longer than a normal person would because I had access to the film equipment in the tech office. I was the first woman at UCLA that they allowed to work in the tech office, which is where they dish out the equipment to the students, because they didn't think women could pick up the equipment. And I picked it up until I was 8 months pregnant.
Right.
So screw them.
Right. And you had to, adopt a similarly tough approach, as I understand it, when you started doing things with Albert Brooks and Lorne Michaels and when you were involved with Saturday Night Live. Once again, I think you've said in interviews there was no way they were going to let you direct anything there because you were a woman. But that's sort of where you got your break. Is that fair to say, at Saturday Night Live, and particularly with Albert Brooks?
You call it a break? Yeah. I like that. I actually learned really the technical and, aspects, and I loved film history in school. I wasn't, all right, let's put it this way. I really learned how to make movies and shoot music when I started a company called Rock and Reel. And I did that because a guy named Peter Philbin that worked at CBS Records was a friend of mine. And he called me up and he goes, hey, you want to make a music video? And I didn't know what that was. And nobody did, They just figured out you don't have to send the whole band around the world. You could just send a little piece of 16 millimeter film. And that was a big breakthrough. I really learned how to shoot music that way. Lorne Michaels called me up one day and said, Penelope, I've got this. Sorry, couldn't resist. I've got this brilliant comedian, but he won't be a player on the show. He only wants to make little movies, and he doesn't know how. So you know how, so would you please teach Albert Brooks how to make movies? So we made little movies for Saturday Night Live. I kept saying to Lorne, could I give you an idea or two, and maybe I could make a little movie for the goddamn show? Can I swear on this show?
Of course you can. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The more the better.
Oh, dear. Well, don't turn me loose, bub. Okay. So, anyway, Lorne, I always would give him, he blames it on everybody else, okay? Well, if the team likes your idea, well, it's not the team, it's him. You can do one of the short films. Okay, never could do one on Saturday Night Live. But after we did 6 or 7 with me telling Albert where to put the damn camera, I was blessed with the job of producing Albert's first movie, Real Life. And it was after that he went on to, make himself a career as a director, starring in his own film. But he never asked me again to work with him. He used all the crew I brought him. He gave he got Eric Saarinen to shoot it, And I sound like I'm griping and whining a little bit, but that was kind of shitty. And also, I think they just did a movie. Rob, who was always Albert's best friend, Rob Reiner.
Yes.
He directed a doc lately about Albert's career. Guess who was excluded? Ta-da!
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, fuck those guys,
Yeah. Oh, that's disappointing to hear.
I was just going to ask where music started coming into it for you, because obviously, you were making music films. Was that because you were going to see bands? Were you into music as a kid, or was it just that it was an opportunity that presented itself?
Oh, honestly, Jasper, I was so into music as a kid because, as Barney mentioned, I had a really, really, really crappy childhood with 7 drunk stepfathers and a drunk mother. And so whenever times got tough, I would go and listen to rock and roll. I would go to clubs, and we were down in Orange County. I got to be friends with Dick Dale and Deltones. Would perform. They would perform surf music at the Rendezvous Ballroom. I was friends with Sepp Donahauer, who had a club called the Cheetah. You ever heard of the Cheetah?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
We've probably got 50 live reviews on Rock's back pages of gigs that took place at the Cheetah.
Really?
Something like that, yeah.
Well, see, you know all this stuff. So I saw Blue Cheer there.
Wow.
How's your hearing now?
Huh?
How's your hearing now?
I was just going to say, you're so funny. I was just going to say, I didn't know, that they were going to be so loud, because no band was ever that loud before or after. Well, maybe AC/DC, whatever. Anyway, I was standing right in front of the big speakers when they started. Yeah, I got my inside scrambled, man.
Gosh. Is that where your love of heavy metal began?
I think so.
Yeah.
That was the day.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember it also, which I was so young and innocent that I was waiting in line. This is kind of nasty if it's okay, but I was waiting in line to get in to that gig, I remember. And some guy came up to me and whispered in my ear, "Would you give me head?" And I thought, what does that mean? I didn't know what it meant. And I'm like,
I hope you didn't say yes on the basis of not knowing what it meant.
Yeah.
No.
Anyway.
Oh, wow. That all happened, right? Gosh. I wanted to mention that since Jasper mentioned the like music and videos and stuff, he and I were driving back from the countryside. We had a business trip on Friday, and we were driving back listening to the Doobie Brothers' Captain and Me album. And I think I'm right in saying, yeah, you did a video for them. Is that have I got that right?
You sure do. I swear, you know everything, Barney. I have to admit, yes, I did for Warner Brothers Records a video for the Doobie Brothers. And I remember I really didn't like the song. I didn't like the band to start with. They really weren't my style. Mm-hmm. You were right about my brother. He was more the kind of groovy, folky thing.
Yes.
And I was more the hard rock thing. Doesn't mean we didn't love each other deeply. But yeah, this guy, Adam Summers at Warner Brothers Records, calls me up and says, will you go up? I think San Francisco, San Jose, I don't know where the hell they were. But I went
San Jose. I think they were from San Jose.
Oh, is that? See, of course you would know.
That's my memory, yeah. I saw them in 73. Anyway, you went up to see them. Yeah.
That was about when I shot. That was about when I filmed them.
Okay. Was it like, it wasn't like listen to the music or Long Train Running?
No, it was Dirty Water.
Dirty Water. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't like the song. Oh, Dirty Water. Oh, God. And
we quite like them. We like that album anyway. It's good driving music, as we discovered on Friday.
Well, I'll be honest with you. They weren't very nice to me. And when I got there, was at somebody's house or something. And I was supposed to film him in a makeshift studio they had. And they were all outside playing basketball. And I'm waiting with my crew. And they wouldn't come in and do the shoot. They were just playing basketball outside. It was kind of rude, but, it wasn't the worst time, actually. Look at me gripe. Jesus Christ. I remember one time there was this gorgeous woman named Juliana Roberts that worked at, what's the name of that company that did all those music videos? You're going to know this, Barney. Back in the day, started with a P. It's like there was this company back in the day that did all these music videos, not Paradigm, but I'll think of it in a sec. Anyway, that company, she brought me into a studio, and there were all these long-haired dudes sitting there, glam-looking things. Juliana says, okay, Penelope's going to direct your video. And they said, oh, well, no, we're not going to have a woman direct our video.
Oh,
yeah.
Lordy.
Yeah. And, I try to remember the name of the band. I should call Juliana and ask her, but nobody ever heard of them.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. If we jump forward to 1979, I read this great quote. You're walking down Hollywood Boulevard. You hear this infernal racket coming out of a club, and you walk in, and it's the Masque Club. And tell us if you can remember to transport yourself back to that moment, your discovery of hardcore punk rock in Los Angeles.
Well, I will say that there's a couple things about that intro or question that I have to explain. And that is that the Masque itself was run by Brendan Mullen. And I was friends with Brendan a long time before he started the Masque.
Okay.
And I was into that whole punk scene a long time before the Masque existed. And the Masque was underground. So if you walk by, you can't hear anything because you have to go down this really skinny little staircase to get to it. So that wasn't my introduction to punk.
Okay.
Yeah, just for the record.
Yeah, sure.
So you're 99% now and not 100, but whatever.
I'm just going on a quote I read, which
I'm telling you.
Someone put words in your mouth or something. It doesn't really matter. You went in. Yeah.
You're right. And like I said, there's so many urban legends that evolve from the Decline movies. And I feel like I'm putting out a forest fire here with my bare feet trying to stomp them out,
That's what the podcast is all about, stomping out urban legends. So
yeah.
Feel free.
But then again, everybody has a different perspective and perception of what happened when, So they may remember something that happened that I question, whatever. What the fuck were we talking about?
So what was your first exposure to hardcore punk
exactly.
then?
What was it? How do you get from the Doobies to Black Flag?
Yeah, how do you get from the Doobie Brothers to the Germs?
Yes, there we go. Okay. We need you to supply that missing link.
Well, I was friends with all these punks, and there were shows happening everywhere, kind of underground shows that you found out about through flyers because there were no social media or anything. And so I just started going to clubs, and my boyfriend at the time was the guy that had Slash magazine and Slash Records. Yeah, he was an asshole.
Is that, let's name him, shall we? Is that Bob Biggs?
Yeah, Bob Biggs was an asshole. Yeah, okay. He's dead now, but he's still an asshole. He's an asshole in hell. Okay. Is the woman bitter? Let's ask ourselves. No. I have to get over that one, man. That was the worst. Anyway, so I was friends with all these.
Yeah.
Bob was not a punk. Bob was a artist. He was a good artist, and he was a businessman, and he was a good businessman, although he was rather dishonest sometimes. And he was a drug dealer. Okay. And so I got an exposure to all of those sort of parts of life through him. We went to all the clubs together and watched all the bands. And I had my music equipment because I was doing the rock and reel videos.
Yes.
And so I would take the equipment out at night and shoot punk bands. And honestly, the people in the Slash office thought they made fun of me for doing it. It's like, what are you doing that for? It's stupid, But that's what punks do. They just put everything down. Fine. I can do it.
So even though they were one of the leading punk labels, they didn't think it was worth documenting this stuff.
No, they kind of, well, maybe they thought I was competing with the magazine. I don't know what the hell they thought, but I did get a vibe they didn't really support it, So it didn't bother me. I kept going. I remember one day I had seen some really great looking graffiti, punk rock ad for a show or something on a wall outside on Melrose. And I said to Bob, do me a favor, man. You drive the car. I got the camera. I'm going to film the graffiti. And he said, no, that's a big waste of my time. So I got better stories about him, but whatever.
I just wanted to quote from with the feature on the RBP homepage is all like about you and Decline, and there's a review that Don Waller wrote for New York Rocker in September '81. Don was an LA writer, you probably remember anyway.
Who?
Don Waller. So he just said, there's one thing I just wanted to quote from his review: the spiritual deprivation that Spheeris' film exposes makes the LA punk scene all too frequently characterized as backdated borrowings from England 77 valid. Deprivation to the point of alienation is deprivation, regardless of its source. It is this sense and the desire to communicate these feelings that is the very heart of rock and roll, anytime, anywhere. So just, when we saw this film in the UK, I think it was, we started to get rumblings of the fact that there was a version of punk rock that was taking root in Southern California. And not that it felt like punk was completely dead, but it was, I don't think we expected LA to be a place, or all the suburbs of LA to be a place where this very, very exciting new kind of punk rock began to kind of erupt. I remember Mick Farron writing an amazing piece in NME, and we started to hear about the Germs and Black Flag and so forth. I think one of the things that is phenomenal about that film, The Decline, and it just really is one of the great punk films, is it just didn't seem to accord with anyone's idea of what Southern California was about. Is that fair to say, Penelope?
So if I heard your reading of the quote correctly, a guy can kiss my ass. Okay. So if I'm understanding correctly, he's criticizing the film because punk rock started in England. Is that what I heard?
No, I don't think he's criticizing. I think he's saying that what's happening in Hollywood at the Masque and clubs like that it's not, to quote him, backdated borrowings from England in 1977.
Oh, it's not.
He's talking about the spiritual deprivation of kind of like suburban kids in California. And that's why this music.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Okay, he doesn't need to kiss my ass. All right. So
well, I'm afraid he's dead too. So.
Oh, he's dead?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, kiss my ass in hell. All right. So, I always find it fascinating, Barney, that people like to have a geographical claim to a certain type of music. It sort of reminds me of a sports mentality. Yay, go Rams! Who gives a fuck where they're from? That's the way I look at it. I mean, look, do we argue over where a tree came from? Yeah, eucalyptus came from Australia. Okay, let's argue about that.
Sure.
I don't care where the music came from. The music is there. Let's appreciate it. And let's not get territorial about it, is the way I look at it. Yeah.
I agree. And I think that the punk rock that came out of Southern California and Northern California too, is as good, as valid as any punk rock that came out of Britain or New York. I really do. Yeah. I mean, I think Black Flag made incredible records. X, the Germs. I like the Germs. I mean, Darby, tell us a little about Darby Crash, because he was kind of like...
I'm sorry, you skipped over X. May I back up a bit,
yeah, of course.
Barney? Because I'll be honest with you, when I did The Decline, I filmed the performance versions of whatever bands happened to be playing when I had the equipment, okay? So I don't really think X is a punk band. I know everybody hangs that label on them. But
I agree.
If you listen, you agree?
I agree. I never thought of them as really as a, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I mean, Black Flag certainly was. And
oh, yeah, Black Flag and Jerks. And
Circle Jerks. I love Circle Jerks.
Yeah, me too. But anyway, people always say X is a punk band. Well, they were around during that time. I happened to film them because I had the equipment. And whether or not they're punks, or their music is punk. I disagree with that. And like I said, everybody's got subjective ideas about what is, about the definitions. But their music is so melodic and it's not aggressive. And as a matter of fact, they had great objection ultimately from for me putting them in the film with a rowdy crowd over their song Nausea for my title sequence. So they said that's not our crowd. We don't claim that rowdy crowd because we're more kind of hippy dippy, folky, whatever.
Yeah, and sort of literary as well. They're pretty literate, weren't they? I mean, Exene was
they're great songwriters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're great. They're not punk. I'll argue all day with you on that. Actually, I won't. I got better shit to do.
Tell us just briefly about Darby Crash, who obviously died very young and was kind of like, maybe it's glib to say it, but sort of LA's Sid Vicious, maybe. I mean, it came across sort of a bit dumb, but he was quite
dumb?
A bit dumb. Maybe it came across a bit dumb in the decline.
Oh.
I mean, or just stoned. I mean, he was just kind of out of it, wasn't he?
Okay. Well, he operated on a different level, to be honest with you. And I think that was people's attraction to him. He was definitely not dumb.
Okay.
He was definitely loaded all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But I will say he was tuned into something else. Okay. Like, I know there's a weird example, but you know how now if you're going to load in something on the computer, you get this blue circle that goes around and around and around? Think about the Germs album cover.
Sure.
That's that blue circle. He saw it coming, man.
Okay.
Darby, I think Darby wanted to project the I don't give a shit punk attitude.
Yeah.
And he did that very, very well. To the point of not giving a shit about living. And that's unfortunate. But I remember Bob Biggs saying to me, I'm thinking about recording the Germs. And of course, we had seen the shows before they got canceled out of every club. And he said, you want to go down with me to listen to them in this little garage in West LA? So I did go. And he brought Joan Jett along, because he thought it would be a good combo to have her produce the album. Bob was driving. I'm in the passenger seat. Joan Jett is in the back seat, passed out. Some people call it drugs. I'm not going to go there. But when we got to that garage and I heard the Germs for the first time, something freaky happened because the garage was so small and the music was so loud and discordant and weird. I'd never heard anything like that before, that my brains were kind of blown out. And Joan was still passed out, so I don't know what she was doing. But on the way back from that session, I had the deepest sleep of my entire life because my brain just got fried there, right. Anyway, Bob went on to record the Germs album historically, And
Joan Jett did produce it.
Well, the lyrics to Richie Dagger's Crime, Joan Jett passed out on the fucking set.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I had forgotten that.
So
yeah.
I'm going to say somebody else produced it.
But it was a good thing to put a name on it, right? Because
that's what he was doing. I told you he was a good businessman.
Yeah. Got it.
Now, if Joan wants to come and argue with me about whether or not she produced the album, let her know I don't have time to talk about it. Okay.
Anyway, look, suffice to say, Decline of Western Civilization is an extraordinary film. I mean, I haven't seen it for a while. I've seen it a couple of times in the past. I mean, it's just one of the great, I think, music documentaries. A few years go by and you kind of think about this other scene that's, that's sort of fermented in Los Angeles, particularly on the Sunset Strip. And you just get, you talked about Blue Cheer earlier. So when was the first sort of sense you had that maybe there was a film to be made about the whole culture of heavy metal and specifically sort of, glam metal, really, which was in the ascendant at that point?
Yeah, you're right, because there was a transition between the height of the punk time into metal, but that transition, again, was when I had equipment, and that was the glam metal era. And the first time I noticed it, I was driving on the south side of the street past the Roxy and Rainbow and all, the whiskey. And I noticed that the whole other side of the street was full of kids that were totally different looking than the punk kids. And, they were wearing like bandanas on cowboy boots and all their style, and their hair was all fluffed up and blah, blah. So you know me, I pull over and get in the crowd, I'm like checking it out, and everybody's giving me flyers and shit. So I started listening to or going to the shows of it was a reaction to punk rock in a way.
Yes.
It was just like, okay, let's just put down everything that punk did and create our own identity. Every generation wants their own identity, as teenagers and early 20s. They want their own ID. And so that's what they were doing. And that happened to be when I had the equipment, and the people that were helping me pay for it really, really loved the glam aspect of it and wanted me to emphasize that, even though my instinct was to go toward the harder bands. Guns N' Roses was supposed to end the movie, and that dick that managed them pulled them out the day before I was supposed to shoot. Right. So I was lucky enough to get Megadeth, because I had worked with Megadeth doing Wake Up Dead video and other stuff with Shocker with Wes Craven and blah, blah. So I knew Megadeth.
Right.
And then I knew Alice too. And we got all these big names to do the interviews, because the essence for me of the decline was to showcase unknown bands, Yes. So I didn't want to have Kiss up there, nor would they have done it. Mm-hmm. I forgot what you asked me, but I'm just rattling on because the coffee kicked in. Woo!
Who was the guy in the pool, in the chair in the pool, drinking Jack Daniels with his mum on the side of the pool? Who was that? That was a brilliant scene. That's
the one that is sort of the one that everyone who's seen the film remembers more than anything else, really, is.
So
Chris Holmes.
Okay, so Jack, yes, you're correct. Jack Daniels, you must associate with Lemmy. Okay, right. That's the Jack Daniels guy. Chris Holmes in the pool was swigging vodka.
Right. Okay.
Because it was clear, remember? Yeah.
I was just too riveted by his mum. I find his mum absolutely riveting.
Sandy, yeah. I knew Chris. Okay, see, I remember my life by movies and boyfriends. I had another shitty boyfriend in the 80s. He was friends with Chris, and they're both like 6'6". You see these guys walking down the street together, they look like the number 11, So anyway, so this guy, whose name I'm not going to mention because he's still trying to get money out of me, So, I had been over to Chris's house a few times, and I met his mom, Sandy, so that when I asked Blackie Lawless from Wasp if I could interview him in the film, and he said no, because he's so cool. And then I asked Chris, and I asked his mom to come along. And when I shot that scene, I thought, God, I didn't get it. I did not get an interview. I'm going to have to ask the producers, let's shoot something else, because I did not get it. I took Zimmerman, the camera guy, across behind a tree, and I said, what are we going to do? It's just, I got nothing. Turns out it's the most memorable scene of...
It's often the way, isn't it? It is often the way.
Yeah, I had no idea that it would work,
That's brilliant.
It is riveting.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And lately, God bless Chris, because he thought all these years that he didn't get paid. And I know that we paid him. The production team would write a check to whoever we interviewed. And I think he might have drank a little too much to remember he got paid. But anyway, I offered recently to pay him again. And I'm talking like in the last couple of months.
Okay.
Because I didn't like him running around saying I didn't pay him.
Sure.
Not even my job to pay him, but he was blaming me. Anyway, For years, decades, I communicated with him and asked him if I could pay him again. And he said, like a man, no, I don't need it. Yeah. So God bless Chris Holmes. I heard he was a little bit sick lately, and I wish him and his wife, Kathy, the best.
One of the things that I find extraordinary about the Decline films is how honest the portrayal is of what's going on, and how you witness all these, or you film all these incredible events that are by turns strange and funny and depressing and all kinds of, they run the whole gamut of life, really. And you manage to portray them in a way that doesn't judge them and doesn't either put them on a pedestal or throw them in the bin. I mean, how did you do that?
Jasper, thank you for asking that. And for me as a filmmaker, that is my ultimate goal, is to present a situation, interviewee, subject, whatever, in the most non-judgmental way possible. Because I feel that we as filmmakers should not be preaching or trying to impose our own standards on the audience. I like to just show what's going on and let the audience interpret it as they wish. And so for you to notice that, I'm thrilled and happy that you brought it up.
I just wanted to mention, so there's an interview you gave to Sylvie Simmons of Raw magazine in September 1989, when the second Decline film has just come out in the UK. And you tell Sylvie, I wanted to shoot a girl band for the film, but by the time I found one to shoot, Vixen, they told me I didn't have enough money to film them. So on the basis of that, we went through our audio archive in search of metal.
I feel like
audios.
you're going to try to hit me here, but go ahead. Dude.
Well, so we found a tape of a Vixen audio interview, also from 1989, and we thought I'm going to ask Mark to tell us about it, and then we can just talk about like women and metal perhaps after that, because it's kind of interesting what they say. So Mark, tell us.
Is this going to piss me off?
No, it's not going to piss you off. No, but funny enough, it does mention the metal years. So Mark, why don't you tell us about the first of the two clips and the whole interview itself?
Yeah, it's with Jan Gardner, who's the lead guitar player, and Roxy Petrucci, who's the drummer, backstage at some show by Matt Snow, as you say, July 1989. They talk a lot about how they survived the early years, as first of all, Roxy's band, Madam X, and then Vixen themselves. The kind of being on the road, the sort of the whole kind of life. And unless it's in the first clip, it's about, how every band thinks they're going to make it.
You see that from the metal years, where the director asked all these young bands in Los Angeles the same question: what if we don't make it? And they all said, well, of course we're going to make it. Every single one of them. Now, logic tells you they're not all going to make it. There isn't enough room.
But that's the right attitude.
Yeah. They got to believe that, or if they don't have that, then they never will for sure,
Really, if you don't believe in yourself, the bands aren't.
But it's also, isn't it kind of making a real problem for yourself? Because at what point do you give up? You say,
Some
it's
do,
not happening,
some
you know,
don't.
Yeah, but if you give up, then you'll never make it. You got to give it a shot.
I love how defensive they are, really. You know, they can't bear to admit the possibility that they might not make it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, they then go on to talk about the difficulty in getting a record deal because, frankly, record companies didn't take an all-woman rock and roll band, metal band, seriously. You know, it was a real struggle for them. They go on to talk about the place of girl bands in hard rock. Let's have a listen to this next clip.
Have you discerned a kind of distinct difference in the way that you're treated by audiences because you're women? Is there a difference or not, do you think?
Look, I'm trying to picture a guy concert, like Ozzy, and the way we're treated. You're talking about fans, maybe?
Maybe at first, but I think by the end of our show, people forget that
we're girls.
They're just, either enjoying it or having a good time.
Or whatever. I think they're more careful not to hurt anybody in the band because they're girls.
Yeah.
If somebody's to rush the stage or something, I haven't seen anybody like pull anybody off or anything weird like that. They maybe want to touch you or something, but I think they're more careful because there's girls up front. But as far as everything else, no, they treat us like any other rock band. I mean, from way in the back of the arena, you can't tell if it's girls or guys.
Yeah. In fact, somebody even said that.
Yeah,
but you can't tell, but you do know, don't you? I mean, it's fiction, it's not guys. But...
Yeah.
I think there's probably people out there that hear Janet's voice, but maybe they can't tell. If they haven't heard of us or something, they might not know.
And it's still blowing away a lot of people. They still can't. That's girls up there doing that. It's unbelievable. People are still surprised. That's good.
So we thought we'd play those to you just to briefly talk about kind of the how women are portrayed and talked about in the metal years, but also just putting in context. It's not like there'd never been any all-girl bands before. There'd been Fanny, of course, there'd been the Runaways. There was Girl School metal band in the UK.
And they talk about all of those bands in the interview. And about, they say that Girls' School never really made it in the States at all. That there was a ceiling that all of those bands hit.
I mean, Penelope, do you remember meeting Vixen? And did you hear Vixen? I mean, were they a group that meant anything? I mean, they had a number 26 hit, I think, with Edge of a Broken Heart, but they didn't really make it. I mean, that's the sort of cruel irony, really, for the first gift. They didn't really make it. They still exist in some form. But were they a group that you were aware of in the context of the glam metal scene that we were talking about?
Yes.
You remember? Did you see them play?
I don't remember.
Yeah. I mean, it's the awful truth is they weren't terribly good, I don't think. Pretty formulaic.
And then why the fuck are we talking about them?
I think partly because the just unbelievable misogyny and sexism of many of the male interviewees in Decline 2. That's sort of why I thought it was worth talking.
I understand what you're saying, Barney. And the fact of the matter is it was really, really terrible sexist time and really difficult time for women. I'm glad I was older than most of, the fact is all those guys, and they even told me this, they wore makeup so that they could not intimidate the young girls. They liked really, really young girls. Okay. And so I was out of the running thank God. But it was a time when, an older, not that great looking chick like myself I felt kind of like ugly and old during that time, because all those guys liked young, they liked strippers and those sex pot kind of bimbo chicks,
Yes.
And the funny part, most of them married those girls, okay? And now the girls are taking all their money.
Yeah.
Did your desire to portray things in the way that we were talking about before, without editorializing, without judging, did that come into conflict with what you just described when you saw these guys behaving shittily? Did you ever think, fuck, I want to do something to kind of address this?
Or how am I going to change it? You know what I mean?
No, sure.
Like, how am I going to change the world? I can change my immediate environment to a degree. I can't change those guys' sexist attitudes on film,
Sure.
Maybe what you're saying, Jasper, is perhaps I should have challenged them more in the interviews. And yeah, probably, maybe I should have. But I'll be honest with you, that was a time when everybody bought in to to that way of thinking. Everybody bought into it. You just understood it as that,
Yeah.
And it's like a crowd behavior, And yeah, I guess maybe I am a bit guilty for not busting them out anymore. But, it is what it is, and I can't change it. Some of them are in jail now, so no, just kidding.
I mean, we have to talk briefly about Wayne's World, obviously the highest grossing movie of your career. And it wouldn't have happened, I don't think, without the metal years. So Lorne Michaels and Mike Myers saw the metal years and were aware of your documenting of that metal period. I mean, is that kind of what happened? They saw it and came to you and said, we've got, obviously these Mike and Dana and stuff are on Saturday Night Live, and we want to make this film, and we're thinking about you.
That's kind of the dream scenario that led up to me getting the gig as a director on Wayne's World. When I say dream, I mean, that would be the logical way to think about it. I had just done the metal years. Wayne and Garth thought they were metalheads. They weren't. They were a couple of posers. Okay. Which made them funnier.
Yeah, of course.
And I had known Lorne before. And yes, he did owe me a little bit for helping out with Albert and never giving me a gig on Saturday Night Live. But I don't think he thinks that way. So we can rule that one out. Fact of the matter is, Paramount was up against the wall, timing-wise, to hire a director fast, because the boys had to shoot during the summer and get their ass back to New York so that they can write on Saturday Night Live. And in Lorne's life, the most important thing is Saturday Night Live. It ain't no stupid movie. You know what I mean? So they had to get him back. And we shot up until the moment the guys had to get into a limo outside the soundstage and go to the airport. They went to the airport wearing those stupid fucking wigs. Okay.
Wow. That's brilliant.
And the reason I got the job was because there is a God, and he chose to have the timing work in my favor. I was up for another gig at the same time. I was going to do a documentary on Patton State Hospital for the Criminally Insane. And I was in that hospital when I went over to a wall phone, and there was shit on the wall. Literally, there was somebody smeared shit on the wall next to the phone. And I picked up the phone and I called my agent, and he said, "You got the gig to do Wayne's World." And I'm like, "Oh, dude, I don't have to talk about this shit on the wall."
I was so pleased when it came out, because I'd been going to Los Angeles to work in 1988, and watching Saturday Night Live, which wasn't available in England. And I just loved their spot on the show. I mean, it just made me roar with laughter. And then there was a movie about it. Oh, boy, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, we did all love it.
It was all a matter. It was a matter of timing. And like I said, that's and luck, And I really can't attribute it to anything else other than the perfect, wonderful chemistry of all of us coming together at the same time. Mike and Dana and Bonnie and Terry Turner. Lauren never came to the set, so fuck him. Anyway, well, he came twice, maybe twice,
okay.
2-3 times. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, so it was all the right people came together at the same time. And that's just magical. I have no other way to explain it, and I never, ever want to take credit solely for the movie, ever. It was all of us.
Yeah. When I interviewed you the year after for Vogue, December 93, that interview came out, and they titled the piece, "See You at the Bank, Dude," with an exclamation mark. And you did tell me the stress on that movie was unfathomable. I've worked with comedians my whole life, but let me tell you, throw a few of those psychos together in one room and you've got a snake pit. I barely made it through that one alive. I know it wasn't, for the joyous film that it is, it wasn't the happiest experience of your life, was it?
I will say that was brilliant dialogue on my part.
It's verbatim. It's absolutely verbatim.
It wasn't. You didn't make that up, Barney. You're a better writer than me.
No, ma'am. No? I did not.
All right. Well, you know what? That was probably an interview that was done after I was denied the gig to direct Wayne's World 2.
Right.
And I was really disheartened and disappointed and angry and hurt about that. You can make $200 million for the studio and then you can't do the part 2.
Sure. But who remembers part 2, right?
I never even saw it.
Yeah. Boo-hoo. You think Mama didn't laugh her ass off at that point?
I think we know you did. Penelope, I just wanted to talk briefly about the week's featured writer who sort of fits into the overall theme of this episode. A guy called Mike Saunders, who became known as Metal Mike Saunders, and who straddles kind of punk and heavy metal. He may even have been the first writer to use the phrase or the term heavy metal in 1971 in a review that we're featuring on the homepage of a little-known and long-forgotten band called Lord Baltimore. Hilarious name. Their album Kingdom Come, he reviewed for Cream, and he used those two words, heavy and metal, together. He's an amazing writer. He's like one of those great, like Gonzo, like Lester Bangs type writers. So we're just featuring that review. We're featuring a piece he wrote for Phonograph Record in April 73 called The State of Metal Music Today. And we're also featuring an interview with him from 78 and a piece about his band Angry Samoans, who I saw when I was in LA in 82, 83. I was seeing all these bands and I saw Angry Samoans and I got to know Mike a little bit. Do you ever remember that name, Angry Samoans? Does that sound familiar to you? Do you remember them?
I absolutely remember them. I absolutely watched them perform. I absolutely remember asking Bob Biggs, are they really Samoan?
I think when you saw them, you
have you ever heard?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, there's another band that's equally as well, sort of never recognized like Angry Samoans. They were cool. But have you ever heard of a band called Pure Hell?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
All so as I'm recalling, I saw Angry Samoans and Pure Hell either with each other or right at, around the same time. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Come here, Gringo. Get over here. You're not going out.
That's a cat that Penelope's talking to.
My cat's name is Gringo. I'm sorry.
No, and another one of them is called Jasper.
Jasper, and then we got Louis, King Louis the Turd, I call him.
I'm just going to read out a paragraph from Mike Saunders' review of the Lord Baltimore album, May 71. So he goes, as much as I hate heavy music, cock rock, macho rock, or whatever the current name for it is, I have to admit to having every Blue Cheer album ever made, and then to having a peculiar liking for Led Zeppelin 2 because of its undeniable stupid rock punch. So just as I was once forced to ponder good bubblegum versus bad bubblegum because of my irresponsible fondness for Indian Giver, I'd be the first to admit that there's good heavy and bad heavy. Now, Mike is someone who was a real evangelist for metal when it was just not cool. He wrote screeds of stuff about metal bands, and then formed this punk rock band. He was briefly in a group called VOM with Richard Meltzer, another gonzo critic.
I remember era. Richard.
Richard Meltzer, you'll remember.
Yeah. He was at the LA Weekly, I think.
Well, there's a great quote here from this interview he gave in 1978, where he says his fellow Angry Samoan, or future Angry Samoan, Greg Turner, also a writer, came by one day and mentioned that Meltzer wanted to do a group. He was really serious about forming a band. So I said, okay. And the next time I plugged in the fuzz box to write some metallic riffs, I did a song tailored to Meltzer's voice. It was called Getting High with Stephen Stills. So that was one of VOM's classics. I don't think they played many gigs. Anyway, it's great that you remember Meltzer and the Samoans and all of that. Mm-hmm. Metal Mike, one of the great characters of rock criticism, is our featured writer of the week.
Well, I think this whole idea of taking claim to a term, heavy metal, and saying somebody invented it, for me personally, falls into the same category as giving a geographic credit to where a certain music started.
Yeah, so fair enough.
I don't care who invented the term heavy metal. If Saunders thinks he did, then have a happy life.
I think Burroughs may have used the phrase heavy metal.
Yes,
William Burroughs?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Same as he did with Steely Dan. That was a phrase out of a Burroughs.
There's a name
novel.
of a dildo.
Okay. Oh, heavy metal?
No, Steely Dan.
I was going to say,
the greatest dildo ever designed, the heavy metal.
There's a lot of metal. Steely, there's a lot of metal going on in all of William Burroughs' quotes, isn't there?
Perhaps we should move on from dildos.
Don't you think we have a lot of good laughs in this interview?
I hope so. We certainly have had a great laugh, and I hope you have too.
Yeah. We don't want any dry sort of scholarly examination of the music history.
Actually, that is what we were hoping for from you.
Well, you didn't get it, baby.
No, baby. We'll have to do another episode where you're dry and scholarly.
Well, I'd be dry and boring. Okay, we could do that.
There's nothing more you can leave behind, so forget about seeing, get into your mind. Everything looks better when the world is black. Grab a fork, make a first attack, lights out. Poke your eyes out.
I did want to mention, since we're talking about rock writers, I just want to mention the sort of rather shocking news that just came in literally a couple of days ago. Paul Rambarli, who I read in The NME in the late 70s and was later the editor of The Face, died just a little over a week ago in Paris, where he'd lived for many years. And I was really, really sad to hear this news. I knew him a little and really liked him as a guy and just admired him so much as a writer and editor. So I did want to just mention that and pay tribute to him. I mean, Mark, you would have read Paul Rambarli in the NME, wouldn't you? Wrote about really interesting bands as well. He had really great taste. And we also, of course, lost the great Annie Nightingale, who was a really important woman in British pop. Mark, do you remember hearing Annie Nightingale on Radio 1?
Well, curiously, not really. I've sort of, my relationship with the radio is always sort of fairly vague at the best of times. The weird thing about her is a lot of my DJ friends knew her in her later incarnation as a really kind of banging, house and techno sort of DJ.
Like a club DJ, she was.
Absolutely. And she they all loved her. They said she was just a lovely person to work with, Yeah. And, she's important pioneering stuff. She was the very first woman to DJ on Radio 1. And she stayed there forever. I mean, her last show was just before Christmas.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I remember her well. I don't know if you ever would have met Annie Nightingale, Penelope. I'm guessing not, probably.
No, I haven't. I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about.
Well, funnily enough, the funny thing is, because she became like a co-presenter of the Old Grey Whistle test. Now, you will remember the Old Grey Whistle
I remember
test.
that. Yeah, because we used to send the 16 millimeter film to them.
There you go.
The midnight special sort of thing.
So what I remember, I don't think it's a false memory, that she was flown to LA to report on kind of the whole sort of new wave, like power pop thing that was happening around like the Knack and the motels.
I was just going to say the Knack.
Yeah. And I just have this image of her being like sort of tottering down Sunset in high heels with like 2 or 3 members of these bands, and they were like going into the Whiskey or the Roxy or something. And I hope that's a true memory. But so she kind of did her kind of LA bit there. Anyway, she's just a fixture on the scene, wasn't she, Mark? Here,
and one more kind of recent thing is she won an award from one of the dance magazines about kind of 8 years ago as Caner of the Year, which means that she basically liked her substances and her alcohol, and she could do it with
cane with the best of them.
With the best of them, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well,
all right.
Farewell, Annie.
Now on to, here's Anne Nightingale with this week's Whistle Test.
Hello and welcome to Whistle Test. Lots of hard-driving rock music tonight with a sprinkling of ska. Midnight Flyer featuring Maggie Bell, Trevor Rabin, Michael D. Barr, The Sound, and Camel.
At this point, Penelope, Mark and Jasper are just going to tell us about a couple of pieces that we've added to the Rockspot Pages library. If there's anything you hear that triggers some kind of memory or anecdote, just jump in and tell us about it. But Mark, over to you.
Yeah. This is the first thing. This is from the week before last. Was Erasure's Andy Bell to Sean Pattenden and Select in 1994, talking about his fellow Erasure, Vince Clarke. Just for those who don't know, that Andy Bell's a very out gay man, and Erasure plays sort of what you'd call sort of like the gayer end of dance music. He's a good catch, Vince, but you can't go around with false hopes, can you? I fancied him all along, really. He's very compact, he's cute, he's well-proportioned, he's, what's the word? Respectful. He wouldn't do anybody any harm at all. Yeah, he knows I like him. He teases me.
I love the idea of the compact Vince Clarke, who, by the way, released a solo album just like about a month ago.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Bloody hell. Going in this week, well, it's part of the feature, actually, Review Penelope, is an interview with Richard Harrington from the Washington Post in 1981, in which you say, I hate to say this, I'll take money from anyone, from the scum of the earth if I have to. I've no pride because I have to make my films. I do think the studio system's a gigantic old dinosaur that needs to be totally restructured. They don't want to make good films, and they certainly don't want to make films that say anything on social mores or deal with social issues. They want films that are entertaining, where they can get their $5 quick and let people escape. So that was you in 1981.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
I'm sure you wouldn't say that now, would you, Penelope? You wouldn't say anything like that.
So Richard quoted you accurately.
Except actually there's a lot of futuristic predictions in that quote, if you ask me.
Sure.
Paramount may be bought by Warner Brothers right now. You know what I mean? They're all just kind of melding together.
Yes. Gigantic globules.
I did an interview with a random girl for I fucking forgot the audio visual something or other magazine, and she asked me a question. I says, "Well, you know what? Hollywood can blow me," and she said, "Can I use that as the headline?" And I said, "I don't care." And so she used it, and then everybody else, People Magazine picked it up. Hollywood can blow me. Well, it's sort of like a relationship, like a boyfriend thing. Like, if he doesn't want me, then I don't want him. You know what I mean? So if the studio system and mainstream film financiers don't want me, it's like I don't want them. Did I get fired or did I quit? Well, I quit. So I feel better just saying Hollywood can blow me. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Mark, have you got what else? Have you got?
Just one last thing, which is Schoolie D being interviewed by Damon Wise Sounds in 1989. He says, "It's not that I hate rock and roll; it's that I hate certain images of rock and roll right now."
Is this me talking? Is this me talking?
No, this is
not you anymore.
We've gone beyond you, Penelope. We're now.
How can you do that?
It's not all about you, Penelope.
No,
yes, it is. No.
This is Philadelphia rapper Schoolie D. He says, "Not that I hate rock and roll; it's that I hate certain images that are in rock and roll right now. Certain things are fucked up enough. Like people say, we don't need certain things in rap. We don't need certain things in rock and roll." At which point the interviewer says, "Such as, like we don't need men wearing mascara and lipstick and looking more like a woman than a man. To me, that's not teaching anyone to be real."
Oh, dear.
So on that charming note,
a bit reactionary.
That's my lot. Jasper, what have you got?
So Schoolie D was not a huge fan of the glam metal scene.
No. Clearly not.
Well, may he rot in drag queen hell.
Yay!
Very good, very good. I've got two things to mention. First of which is Sylvia Patterson in The Face, November 2000. This is the headline. Sylvia says, "Bring me Nirvana or bring me death." At the drive-in, this month's saviors come from El Paso, just above the Mexican border, a real America hellhole. They have real big hair, for real inscribed inside their souls, and detonate the airwaves with a sort of colossally intense punk metal, speed rock, shouty bloke, intestinal meltdown the US hardcore has absolute authority over eternally, which means they throw up Pixies, say, where we seep Radiohead. It's just a great, just a great piece.
Since you mentioned Nirvana, just one thing I wanted to say when we were talking about the metal years and Wasp and all of that. I mean, what is so hilarious really about metal is, and you have talked about this, Penelope, in interviews, is that it's like they don't see what's coming, that grunge is coming over the horizon, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just about to wipe them all out. And they just are completely oblivious to what's around the corner.
Well, reminds me of when I did Wayne's World. I was completely oblivious to the fact that would never happen again.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you're at the top of your game,
I think it's going to last
forever.
forever.
You don't realize, and then the only place to go was down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, hey, speaking of that, I wanted to mention, if you don't mind, that I recently had a screening of a film I did 20 years ago, which never got released. It's called We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll.
Oh, yeah, the Ozfest film.
That's right. Yeah, I did it with Sharon and Ozzy, who've been friends for 40-some years. But we did this 1999 Ozfest documentary. And Sharon says she's going to release it sometime soon. So when she does, if she does, hopefully she will. I'm getting a gun to put to her head shortly.
Never put a gun to Sharon Osbourne's head.
Yeah, she'll pull out two of her own.
You'll come out the worst.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, I told her when we started working together, I said, I thought I was the most badass bitch in the business, but once I met her, the game's over.
She can out bitch anyone. Having said that, she took Mark and me for lunch at Morton's.
It was brilliant.
in LA. It was a great experience we had, being taken to lunch by Sharon Osbourne many moons ago, and she was very nice. She didn't hold a gun to our heads.
She took us to Morton's, and we were surrounded by sort of permatan studio execs, and she was swearing like a trooper.
She was.
I rolled a cigarette. He said, "Oh, my fucking husband smokes those, and he gets fucking tobacco in the bed." And you can see all these guys blanching around us. It was marvelous.
Yeah. We'd love to see that Ozfest film.
Yeah.
So thanks for mentioning that. We sold our souls to rock and roll. Jasper, what was the next thing you...
Oh, the second piece was just I was going to welcome a new writer, Pat Pearson, who
yes.
founded Yeah, Yeah, Yeah magazine. And our colleague William added this long interview that he did with David Bowie. It's like a 6,000-word piece in Yeah, Yeah, Yeah on the 23rd of July, 2003. And it's just really interesting. I mean, Pat is like over the moon to be interviewing David Bowie. So it's got a nice angle to it in that sense as well. And Pat says, in general, I think the 80s was tough for anyone who was a serious 70s artist / singer-songwriter. And Bowie replies, I think the problem was there was a point where the industry realized it could make money out of rock music. And it was the first time the industry really started to button up and become corporate in a major way. And I think that affected all of us because we didn't know whether we should go with this or keep our independence and be kind of a little renegade. And I think that's how many lost our way in that.
Yeah.
But the industry was changing like crazy, and I think it did affect everything. Their focus was very different from what it had been in the 70s. The nurturing idea was out the window. That was the beginning of, let's see how he does with his first album and then drop him. It started in the 80s.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, also,
No, I'm going to go back. I'm going to disagree with that. Because I think,
That's your prerogative. That's your prerogative as the guest.
Well, what about Colonel Sanders? You know what I mean? Like, did he exploit Elvis or what? You know? I mean,
no, to the exploitation. But no, I think Bo is absolutely right that the music industry stopped taking risks sometime in the 80s.
Oh, that's what he meant. Yeah,
that's pretty much what he meant. You know.
Yeah,
I think it's about the corporatization of it, really. You know?
Okay.
Should we just make it clear that it was Colonel Tom Parker and not the fried chicken dude?
I was making a joke. God,
I don't want to get sued here.
Actually, one of the side things that everyone I know who's interviewed David Bowie is saying he's one of the nicest, most intelligent people they've ever interviewed. It's always a pleasure. You know.
Well, how nice that he gave this interview to this little magazine. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That says so much about it. It's so typical of Bowie to be generous in that way.
And Pat talks about exactly that, about how he is very generous and how he kind of makes Pat feel at home immediately in the interview situation and doesn't kind of talk down to him or doesn't lecture him or doesn't any of that. So it's great.
Beautiful.
Good stuff.
Is that it?
That's it from me.
That's wonderful. Well, gosh, we're drawing very near to the end of this episode.
Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, baby Jesus. Thank you, baby Jesus. We will be back in a fortnight with a special episode dedicated to Tom Hibbert and the book that we have put together about and by the late, great Tom Hibbert, the funniest music writer ever. If you've enjoyed this episode, please follow our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whichever platform you use. And do give us a glowing review if you can, because it really helps. Do also visit Rock's Back Pages, where subscribers can read over 50,000 articles and listen to over 800 audio interviews with everyone from Jimi Hendrix to Kate Bush. Check to see if your local library or academic institution subscribes to us. And if not, maybe suggest they take a free trial of the world's largest archive of music journalism. For that is what we are. And on that note, it remains for us all to thank you, the great Penelope Spheeris, for making time, for getting up so early to be with us today. It's been such a great pleasure and a hoot, as we say here, an absolute hoot speaking with you. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I loved it. And actually, I want to apologize that I copped out the first time we were going to do an interview. And you were such a gentleman about it and forgave me and even invited me back, Barney. And I feel like I'm going to probably name my next child after you.
No, just name your next child after Jasper, i.e., the baby Jesus, the baby Jesus Spheeris. That's it.
Anyway,
Dear Lord.
You guys are great. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Penelope.
very
It's been
much.
fantastic.
And on that note, it's goodbye from me, Mark, and Jasper, and goodbye from our wonderful guest, Penelope Spheeris. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, y'all. You guys rock on now.
That concludes episode 169 of the Rock's Back Pages podcast. Many thanks to special guest Penelope Spheeris. Visit her website at penelopespheeris.com. The hosts are Barney Hoskins and Mark Pringle, and it was co-hosted and produced by Jasper Murison Bowie. The Rock's Back Pages podcast is part of the Pantheon Podcast Network. You can find thousands of articles, as well as hundreds of full-length audio interviews at rocksbackpages.com.
Crazy and I'm hurt.